here 2 weeks ago.
You know what? She's had a rough week. Lay off Chelsea.
I will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's rule number 1 for today. Lay off a Chelsea.
Mamas with sick kids, we'd be nice to.
You know, the only thing I've noticed, though, is that even though she's in control of it today because Jason's not here, she still hasn't turned the fan off. So she's sitting there with that fan blowing right on her. Got the winter coat on.
That's taking one for the team.
She's
right
tough.
there.
She's a tough person.
Yeah. Try covering a football game when it's sub-zero, but that's a whole other kind of cold going on there. We got to talk a little high school football going on, but before we get to that, we got to talk Sesquicentennial Parade.
Oh,
the great parade over in Westside. You guys were in it. Of course, some outstanding stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
And
it was fun.
Special guest of honor, Mr. Jeff Blankman.
Yeah.
He was featured in that parade.
Yeah, we had him in the back of the Roselle truck. Yeah,
He was just trying to throw me out. That's why he stuck me back there.
I was trying to dump Carl Brinks' daughters off the back of the trailer. I kept hitting the brakes, see if I could roll them.
You were strapped down sufficiently so you couldn't move, correct?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Yes, which was a good thing.
It was a great parade, though, you guys. I mean, it was. You
Okay,
just kept
the
talking
question
about
is,
it.
did you eat more candy or throw more candy? Because every time I look back there, you had a wrapper going in your mouth.
Yeah, I threw one more piece than I ate, but no, it was terrific parade.
Longest
Great
ratio
parade.
is 1-to-1.
Yeah, yes.
I suppose I should apologize to Coach Peterson. So Blankman throws him out a couple koozies. We had some canned koozies, and Coach Peterson, well, Blankman's arm, it landed short, so he had to try to pick it up off the ground. I was firing Tootsie Rolls at Coach Peterson, drilling him.
Yeah, all you heard Coach Peterson is, I'm getting drilled. Who's in there? And then he goes, oh, it's just Honnold.
Yeah. So a little fun at the
We had a lot of
Sesquicentennial
fun,
Parade.
yes.
That was followed by, of course, a very good game that night in Westside as the Arweva Rockets open up with a nice win, 56-50 overtime win. So it gave everybody a little thrill.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a little scary for them early on as they fell down 14-0. You knew that Griswold was going to come out. They had a really good quarterback in Derek Mueller. They were able to establish him early on, and that allowed them to get Lane Mueller, their other running back, kind of going a little bit on the inside. And it jumped up 14-0, but Arweva then answered and got a touchdown. It was 30-14 going into the halftime, and I think the biggest thing was two things. One, Arweva was getting pushed around a little bit in the first half. Young team, Coach Peterson had talked about how they would come out, and they were physical in practice, but would they respond that way in a game against somebody else? And they didn't early on.
I was going to say that this is a really young team.
Really young
I mean,
team.
you
Very
graduate
a lot of
that group of
sophomores.
seniors last
Yes.
year. It's going to take some time to gel.
Absolutely. A lot of sophomores playing. But you could tell Griswold late in the first half was starting to wear down. I think they spent themselves a little bit in the first half. And one of the things with Arweva having 13 kids out, Coach Peterson takes a lot of pride in the condition that his guys are in. And he said after the game that this was a great way to be able to prove to the guys that what they do in June and May and July and early August to get them in this kind of condition pays off, and it did. They wore them down, came out in the third quarter, got right back into the ball game, cut it to 30-28, then gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown, but responded right back. Will Regaler almost took the other kickoff back. He would score a couple of plays later. They grabbed the lead, then it seesawed back and forth, ended up going into overtime, but you just knew going into the overtime that Arweva was the better team. They were in the better shape. They were the more sharper team at that point, and they were the more physical team in the second half. That whole thing just swung in the second half. They came out. Now, Griswold did get down to the 3-yard line on second down, but they stuffed a running play up the middle and then held him on fourth down as well, got the ball back, and 2 plays. Damon Ehlers both runs right up the middle. They just were not going to be able to tackle him, and he went into the end zone pretty easy on that second play, and that was the game winners. They won at 56-50.
Intensity, was that just the difference in the first and second half?
Yeah, I think it was confidence. Griswold's bringing a lot of guys back that had experience. They were a more veteran ball club. They knew what they wanted to do. And then the other thing was Arweva moved some guys around, got some guys in different spots in the second half. They were able to shut down the outside running game. Derek Mueller, the quarterback, I had him 11 carries for 156 yards in the first half. He didn't finish with 200. So they were able to contain him in the second half, and that was, kind of what they needed to get done.
So a big win to kick off the season. What does it do for this team heading into week 1?
I think it gives them a lot of confidence. They still got a long way to go, and I think they know it. The potential to be really good by the end of the year is there. It's a growing process. Coach Peterson said it really well, I think, in the postgame. He says 5 things came out of tonight's game. One, we learned that we have to be physical because we got pushed around. We now know what it's like to play against another physical team. We trailed early, so we had to rally back. So we gained confidence that we're never out of a game. They learned then how to play in a seesaw game where things were going back and forth in the second half. They learned the conditioning, and then they also learned how to win a game in overtime. So a lot of positive things came out for a young team, I think, on a Friday night win.
By the way, we're live streaming right now on our KCIM Facebook page. So if you got a question about Arweva, Audubon, or anything about the football season coming up, let us know.
You might want to ask somebody that knows something, though.
Well, that's true. You might. We'll get you in contact with people who actually know things.
Okay.
We'll let Chelsea answer.
So that kind of wraps up the Arweva game. But nice adjustments at halftime. Chris Peterson's got to be happy with that.
He is. And for his guys to be able to play different positions, that'll be something we talk about with the Audubon game here in a moment as well. Guys being able to be multiple. You hear it so much in a lot of sports that I just want to play this spot, I just want to do this, I just want to do that. You can help your team and be a better all-around athlete and a better all-around player by being able to be multiple and playing different spots. And you saw that. Those guys didn't need time to adjust because they had worked it in practice and they knew how to play different positions, and that's what helped their team be able to win the game.
A lot of pressure on those guys. It was a big attendance that night. Sesquicentennial was going on, so 56-50, a great overtime win, and a great way to kind of kick off the whole Sesquicentennial weekend over there.
You bet. And they had Jeff Storyhunt over there taking pictures, so that put even more pressure
Oh, boy, you
on
should have
him.
seen. So when Blankman comes rolling up the parade route, we'll go back to that. Danner and Storyhunt both saw him at the same time. It was like when you see a pheasant go up and a bunch of hunters. Now, I didn't know you could pop a camera up that fast.
Thankfully, they were just cameras
Yes.
going
Well,
on.
I don't know. It'd been better if they had something else.
Yeah.
So Sean Burks was with us a couple of weeks ago. He was
Yep.
talking about Audubon football, and he kind of talked about East Mills, a team that year in, year out has been one of the dominant teams in 9-man football. And he says, hey, we needed a game. We needed to schedule it. Somebody's got to play these guys. He came out with a pretty impressive win compared to that, the East Mills resume coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Really dominated really about the last 24 minutes or so of that game. It was pretty tight through about the first 18 minutes. They really struggled to stop the East Mills passing game. East Mills had one wide receiver that finished with over 200 yards on 14 catches. The Dyson kid, he was really, really good for them early on. Audubon then switched up what they were doing defensively, went to 2 down linemen and 5 D-backs. So they put guys out there that could get in space and cover. They kind of made, East Mills start to dink and dunk a little bit more, work their way down the field instead of getting more of the big plays. And that allowed them to be able to get some pressure, too. With guys not being able to get open so quick, they were able to get pressure with 2 guys. They were rotating the 3 guys up front so that they always had fresh guys out on the field, and they were able to get pressure, took away the quick strike. And offensively for Audubon, they scripted some plays early on, came out, had some success with those, and then went kind of into more of their spread. Skylar Schultes had a great night running the ball. Ethan Clucky was outstanding running and catching the ball, had big nights in both. Their offensive line created some holes. The other guys blocked it downfield. Gavin Smith got a chance to come in and play a little quarterback as well. He was 4 for 4 with 2 touchdowns, on the night. So this is a team that really clicked offensively and kind of figured things out defensively as the game went on.
Now, you said this game had playoff implications right away.
Well, when you have a 7-2 team against a 6-3 team from last year, both teams are bringing back quite a bit of what they had the year before. You kind of looked at it and you said, the loser of this game, not that they're out of it because, you still win your district, you get a chance to go. But with all games counting now in your RPI, you got to win these kind of games. So starting off 0-1 was not a good thing, and Audubon was able to get that win, and a comfortable one at 61-26.
What does this do for them going forward, you think?
I think it really helps them. I think struggling against the pass and kind of figuring some things out helps them because they're going to run into some teams that are going to throw the football and spread you out as the season goes on. Another one of those going to be Remsen St. Mary's coming to town this weekend. Remsen St. Mary's has got a great quarterback. They've got some good skill guys on the outside, so they're going to challenge that defense again. And as I mentioned, one of the things that Coach Burks was doing this year, he's like, we don't have a lot of guys up front, but we have a lot of skill guys, especially defensively. So they were working guys. They were moving safeties up to linebacker and linebackers to D-line, just moving guys around, getting them comfortable being able to play multiple positions. And that, again, benefited them greatly coming up on Friday night. They were able to adjust mid-game, not even having to wait till halftime. They were able to make that adjustment while the game was still going on and able to stuff them.
Tell you what, coach's dream game. You win by a lot, but you got a lot to coach and teach coming out of that ball game. So Sean Burks, once again, congratulations to him and Chris Peterson and Arweva Audubon. Nice week 0 wins around the area. We got a little cross country to talk about and special guest Brian Knapp still to come on KCIM Sports Rewind.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical... Call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
It is 1380 AM, 95.1 FM, KCIM Sports Rewind here. Fall, guys, football season. Gotta love this.
Feels like fall weather here in the
It
studio.
does. It could be July and it feels like fall football weather.
Chelsea
here in the
would
studio.
probably agree with me. She's got that fan blowing 100 mile an hour.
Her
on
hair's
back
moving over there. It looks like she's riding a motorcycle.
Perfect time of the year to bust out those smokers. We got football
Yes.
going on this weekend. Iowa State going to be hosting. By the way, UNI, Iowa State, 18.5 points spread. Never going to happen, I don't think, on that one. So,
Iowa's going to be really good.
yeah, they've got Miami of Ohio in their first
that's
game.
right. Yeah.
So what was that spread again?
18.5. Iowa State over UNI.
I think I'll take you and I.
I
With
believe.
the points.
When's the last time UNI got beat
We can
that
actually
bad by
do
Iowa
that
or
now.
Iowa State? Yeah,
We could go-
with
I
that
know.
going.
Road
yeah.
trip.
One thing you got to do, though, of course, bust out that smoker.
Smoker.
Traeger Smokers available with Carroll Lumber. Tell you what, you can grill the perfect tailgate food with these Traeger Smokers.
I
Yeah,
can't
you
believe
can-
they haven't brought one here. I mean, if us, the three monkeys could cook on that, I mean, think about, we could put it on video even. Chelsea, could we do that with us cooking? We
Yep,
won't show us
yep.
eating. That would turn everybody off. But us, if we could cook it, anybody could.
You can get any kind of Traeger smoker you want, plus all the accessories to go along with it. And, of course, the fall, you're talking about windows for the house. So if you got that coming up, got those leaky, drafty windows, nothing's going to save you more money than fixing that and get a great window with Marvin, Sierra Pacific, or Anderson brands at Carroll Lumber. So if you don't know a lot about windows like we did, we talked about this last week. We don't know anything about windows, in fact.
The one thing I know is I could stand outside smoking with the smoker, watching the game inside on the TV.
If there's one thing
Through
we
the
can do, we can
Yeah,
figure
through
out the
the window.
laziest way to
Yes.
do
Well,
something.
Absolutely.
did you see the Farmer's Almanac? It's calling for a polar coaster.
Mm-hmm.
So you do not want to have a drafty window. So they're correct. You might want to get that fixed before it gets cold.
There was 3 words when I looked at the Farmer's Almanac for this winter. Snowy, icy, icky is what it said over the state of Iowa. I'm not making that up. You can look that up. So, yeah, your windows are definitely going to need to be replaced if they're leaking this fall. So stop on by, talk to Carroll Lumber. They've got locations in Wall Lake, Lakeview, and Odebolt. They'll do a terrific job for you with great new windows from Marvin, Sierra Pacific, and Anderson brand. Cross country over the weekend, of course, or actually just yesterday.
Yep, just yesterday.
Coon Rapids Bear down
Yeah.
in a tournament.
Yeah, they went down to the invite down at Jester Park last night that Woodward Granger hosted. I know Coach was really excited about how they performed. All of the kids that were back from last year made really big strides from what they did last year. It's the second year back now with cross country at Coon Rapids after a few years off. On the boys' side of things, Colby Heidoff was their top guy last year. He took 10th last night, ran it in 21:03. Keegan Seilers and Corey Heidoff were 33rd and 41st. So they don't have full teams, so they're not going to be able to get team scores, but those individuals really went out and ran well. And then on the girls' side of things, Bryn Bass, the sophomore, had a really good night. She finished 11th in 26:09. Lacey Davis, just a freshman, finished in 33rd, and Bridget Sherbraun was right behind her in 34th place. So I think the future for those kids all going to be very, very good.
So that was results from yesterday. Volleyball coming up tonight. We'll finally get that season underway. Seems like that's always kicked off before football, but not this year.
And
Yeah.
we get a pick on Lawn Dog.
Yep, we do. Glidden Ralston, South Central Calhoun, Audubon, all going to be in action tonight. South Central Calhoun goes up to their yearly matchup with Ridgeview. They
Yep.
open up every year with them. This year it's going to be in Shaler. Audubon travels to Nottoway Valley for a nice non-conference matchup there. And then Glen Ralston's in a triangular that gets underway at 5 o'clock over in Jefferson. Them and Collins-Maxwell are the other two teams along with Greene County. It'll be Greene County Collins-Maxwell at 5. Following that matchup, it'll be Glidden Ralston against Collins-Maxwell. And then the final match of the night is the one we'll broadcast. Should get underway. They're saying about 7 o'clock.
It'll be later.
It'll be probably just a little bit later than that. 7 to 7:30 will be the start time. And it'll be Glidden Ralston, of course, against Greene County.
And I'm going to try to take pictures.
Yep.
We'll see how that works out. This will be my debut of picture taking. We'll see how good Story on is editing, because I'm going to give him the thing and see if he can edit it out. But debut for Lonnie Miller as assistant coach, kind of taking over a little bit over there in Glidden, trying to run the volleyball, so that'll be fun. Heard good reports over the weekend from the scrimmage about him and South Central Calhoun. Both look really good, so sounds like we might have a fun year of volleyball around the
Yeah,
area.
Carol also up at
Carol's
that one and
there, yeah.
played well up at the tournament. Didn't get a chance because of the parade to go up there and watch. But
The report was from my wife, so it's very accurate.
yes.
All right. So Thursday, by the way, good triangular up at East Sac, Newell Fonda GTRA at East Sac. That's going to be a good one.
Absolutely, and I'm going to head up there to watch that one that night. Excited about this ESAC team coming up this year. I think they've got a chance to be really good.
All right, coming up, Brian Knapp, the Assistant Activities Director with South Central Calhoun, and, of course, the girls cross country, girls track coach, longtime coach at South Central Calhoun, is next on KCIM Sports Rewind.
As the athletes at your house prepare. Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
Welcome back to KCIM Sports Rewind. We're happy to have with us right now, on the phone with us, joining us from South Central Calhoun, longtime coach. And you don't not objecting to the phrase long term, are you, Brian?
No, not so much. It just goes with the age.
Brian Knapp, who is the cross-country coach up there at South Central Calhoun, Assistant Activities Director. Another school year getting going, Brian. Is it, once again, the excitement? You feel that every year as you get going for another year?
Well, I think the batteries are recharged now, finally. It's been a process, as it always is every summer, but that's what summer's for, and now I think we're ready to go.
So let's talk about it. What are your preparations like as you get ready for another school year?
Well, it's a matter of getting things organized to begin with, like anybody. Just trying to get, with when you talk about school, being the counselor here and involved with that assistant athletic director, you got your different chores and things you have to take care of to get make everybody else's job a little bit easier, class lists and schedules and things like that, and trying to get all of our activities covered as far as extra duties. That takes some time, and as far as cross-country goes, it's getting the kids involved in summer workouts and getting the kids, ready for the upcoming season the best we can.
How has the start of cross-country gone for you? What kind of numbers do you have out this year as well?
Well, we've got really nice numbers. We've got 17 girls in the high school program. We've got 13 boys in the boys program. It looks like we're going to have about a dozen or so kids in the middle school program between the boys and girls. So we're going to have about 40, 45 kids overall in the program, and that's a solid number for us. So we're really pleased with that.
How do you guys get the kids to go out? I mean, there are a lot of schools that kind of struggle sometimes with numbers, with cross-country especially. You guys don't ever seem to have that problem. How do you build a program that kids wanted to be a part of?
Well, I think, I've been doing the cross-country thing now for 33 years, and my predecessor, Ink Wonderly, the late Ink Wonderly, had been doing it for 19 years, and I think it's just part of our culture around here. Kids have, a lot of my kids, I've had their parents back when I first started 30-some years ago, and it just kind of tends to help itself a little bit. We try to run a very positive program. We have kids that come in, like, a year ago we had Spencer Moon, and a few years before that we had kids that were in state meet for boys and girls, and, we've had a nice run of state qualifiers, which kind of lends to help, encourage other kids to try this. I think one of the things that's happened statewide, which is, it's not taking anything away from anybody else, but I think there's a lot of kids looking at cross-country now because their parents are kind of detouring them away from things where things like concussions can be a little bit more prevalent. I've seen that happen in other schools. I've heard from other coaches that that's happening, and I think that's a little bit part of what we have going on here sometimes on the boys' side of things, and maybe even the girls. But I think just the biggest bottom line there is the culture. I think we have a culture here for running sports. We've had, boys and girls track was very solid last spring, and I think that just kind of helps the whole process.
Do you ever get to rub it in that you had their parents or tell them, hey, your mom and dad did this? I'm sure the kids love to hear those stories.
Well, they always like to hear the stories about mom and dad. It's it's going to get scary if I start to have a grandchild for a runner. If I'm still doing it that long, somebody might have to hit me upside the head or something. I guess we'll see.
Brian, are you getting close to that?
Probably better not speak to that, but I'm like, I got to figure out what the stock line is for that. But yeah, I've been doing it 33 years. If I was going to hang on to things, as long as I possibly could, cross country and track are two things that are dear to my heart, and we'll just keep doing it as long as the body tells me I can, and as long as I keep getting the great kids I do.
What's the selling point? I mean, a lot of coaches have to kind of sell kids sometimes to get out for sports and things like that. What's your big selling pitch to kids to say, hey, come on out, try this sport?
Well, I think you just used the phrase. I always kind of talk to kids about, you want to come out and give this a chance, or you want to come out and run for us, and I think the other thing is, I think word of mouth amongst the kids is really very powerful. And even amongst the parents, they find out that, and I think this is true in all schools that have strong cross-country programs. Cross-country kids are a little bit different type of kid in that they're very self-motivated, and I think that really helps the program overall as far as getting other kids involved. And there's I guess one of the selling points is we have very little drama in cross-country, though I'm sure you've been at meets where you've seen kids dramatically finish a race or collapse and things like that, but there's not any, the stopwatch doesn't lie. You're in the top 7 on the team because you've run faster than anybody else below the top 7. I think that's a selling point. The kids that are running, one of the selling points, I guess, that I just now thought of is we're out doing a 6-mile run or an 8-mile run on a hard day, and the kids are looking around saying, everybody else is going through the same thing, and they're doing the same thing I am. I guess we're all on equal ground. And that kind of helps the kids understand the sport a little bit better, too.
Brian, what do you think the benefits of cross-country are?
I think it's a lifetime sport. A lot of these kids, it's funny. I'm not really attached to it anymore, but for a time I was using Facebook to stay in touch with former runners, and I still keep in touch with those kids. I still get messages from text messages and such, former runners who are doing things like a former runner of mine from 1992 was a state qualifier, just won the Twin Cities Marathon a couple of summers ago, and I've got kids that are saying, hey, I'm running in my first half marathon, or hey, I'm running in such and such 5K or 10K, and I've had a lot of kids go down, former runners that go down and run in the Dam to Dam half marathon in Des Moines, and when you hear those kinds of things, that tells me they're taking it into adulthood and they're keeping themselves healthy, kind of like Jeff when he runs the Relay Iowa across the state of Iowa.
A lot of your kids run Relay Iowa too.
Yeah, and that's really been promoted by Mr. Case more so than by me. Brian really got the school, the kids involved in that, following track season in the spring. I've never been able to partake since they started Relay Iowa. My knees just haven't been cooperating and let me run anymore. But it's exciting when I hear the kids are wanting to do that, and they have a really good experience with that.
It's such a unique sport, cross-country. It's a team, but yet you're really an individual out there. How do you promote the team aspect? What do you talk to your team about before you run a meet?
Well, when I think about that, I guess I'm looking up at the wall in my office right now, and I have some plaques in my office of kids that are part of teams, pictures of teams that ran, and the qualities I see in that is they really understand that they have to run for each other to be successful as a team. And that's true in any sport, but I think in cross country it's particularly true that they have to understand that they have to run as a close-knit pack. There can't be much separation between runners, and that pack has to be near the front of the race, not near the middle or near the back, or they're not going to be successful. It's when we get into a little pre-race huddle, of which we do every race with the boys and girls teams, you can kind of see them looking at each other like, hey, this is our goal, this is what we have to do. take care of things, and then I let the kids take some ownership, and they talk amongst themselves before they run, about what their goal is and who needs to do what. And I've even had so much as, I had one athlete many, many years ago. Her name was Renee, and she was going way too fast for what she was capable of typically doing, and she figured that out about a mile into the race, and all of a sudden she starts yelling back to her teammates that were supposed to be ahead of her, hey, it's time to go. So, things like that happen, and that kind of promotes the team aspect.
Coach, how have you seen cross-country change over the years?
Numbers, I think, is the biggest thing I've seen, and not so much how many kids we get out, but numbers statewide. I served on the state advisory board for about, 8 years, and just seeing the numbers grow from 2,000 to 3,000 runners statewide to, I think it's somewhere between 8,000 and 9,000 runners statewide in the high schools that are participating. It's growing sport. There's so much out there about running and even distance cycling and things like that the kids are getting into now, and I think that's really promoting it.
Brian Knapp, once again, the Assistant Activities Director and cross-country coach at South Central Calhoun. Has the sport changed at all, Brian, in the 30-some-odd years you've been coaching it? I mean, different training techniques come along? Do the courses any different now?
Without a doubt, technology has really changed things. Everybody's got a Fitbit or an I don't know what you even call them anymore, the watches that keep track of their fitness and health, and that's really changed. GPS has changed the sport. Kids can now measure distances. They can look at terrain that they're going to run on and get a feel for it, just through technology. That's changed the aspects of it. I think technology's changed the way meets are run. I mean, we used to, at the finish line, we would hand kids a tongue depressor with a number on it so they'd remember their place, and they'd give all their tongue depressors to their coaches to determine team scoring. And now, everybody's using electronic chips or bib numbers and electronic timing systems. So I think it's really changed, and for the better. In things as simple as even shoes. I've had one runner in 33 years who when they used to let you run meets barefoot. Well, probably not such a good thing. Sometimes people say it is a good thing, but I've had, just the shoe technology has really changed too.
Coach, a couple of years ago or so, they changed the distance for the girls. Do you think that was a good change?
Oh, I think it's a fine change. I think to get them on equal platforms, and I think you've seen it at the state meet level. The girls are handling the 5K distance just fine.
Yep.
It was a little scary at first, I think, when some of the kids that had run the 4K, and I can even go back farther than that. It used to be that's one of the changes, I guess, too. When I first started coaching, both boys and girls ran 2 miles. And then the boys went to 5K and the girls were still at 2 miles. And then the girls went to 4K and the boys were 5K, and now they're both 5K. And the 5K adjustment just really hasn't been significant. You just have to train the kids up to it.
How about a course? What's a good course for you? What do you like to see for your team when you go to run a meet?
Well, I'm not necessarily bragging or promoting our course here in Lake City, but I think our course here in Lake City provides a very challenging course that's somewhat similar to the state meet course. It's a balance of rolling hills and flats, but then you have a section of the course where they got to earn it. They got to get down through the hills, the steep up hills, the steep down hills, and I like to see that. I mean, the kids love to run the flat courses because they're easy, but they also, I think the courses that provide a little bit of challenge kind of separate the men from the boys, women from the girls, so to speak. And I think one of the courses our kids really like to run during the course of the season is the one at Swan Lake that Kemper uses for their meet. It's out in the wilderness. They don't have the pressures of hundreds of people watching them at once, because for a while they just get to be out there on their own and with the other runners, and the kids kind of really appreciate that.
Coach, how tough is it, and how much work is it to put on a meet? You guys do a great one up there every year, weather dependent, of course, but how difficult is it and how time-consuming is it to host a meet?
Well, for about 2 to 3 weekends prior, it's a preparation process that I go through, just because there's certain things I know that have to be done a certain way. But I've got great support. We have great adults that are supporters of cross country. Again, many are former runners that are now parents, and they come out and help with the running of the meet, and we get great support from our administration to get things done and do it the right way. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's an intense, probably 7 to 10 day period of getting things done little by little. And I definitely would have to say that the Lake City Country Club up here, for 33 years for me and for 19 years for Coach Wonderly, they give us pretty much free rein to use the course. And last year was a great example, and I can't say it, enough of how much appreciation we had for them. We had to deal with some very damp, rainy weather when we hosted our meet, and it kind of tore up some places on the golf course, and the people of the course didn't even bat an eye. They just said, hey, it's October, the course will heal itself before next spring, and it did, and we just get that kind of support, and that's awesome.
You've been there over 30 years, Brian. As you look back, and we're not trying to push you out the door or anything like that, but take a look back at your coaching career. What are some of the biggest highlights you've had, whether it's meets or anything that you've experienced through your athletic career at South Central Calhoun that you really are going to look back and take a lot of pride in?
Well, I think the fact that, when I came here in 1987, I took the sport of cross country on because the previous coach was retiring and they needed somebody to fill the spot. And as Jeff will tell you, they didn't have cross country at our previous school where I taught him. So I didn't really know much about the sport.
I didn't know you know Jeff Blankman in a previous lifetime.
Former student.
That is going to be a whole nother interview for another time, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, there you go. But I think the thing that's been nice to see is we've been able to maintain what Coach Wonderly had built at that time, and in some ways maybe improves, maybe some places decline perhaps. But it's been fun to see the kids that get to the state level. I've been fortunate to have about 5 or 6 girls teams and about the same number of boys teams and a scattering of individuals. We've had somebody in the state cross country meet of the 33 years, 30 of the 33 years, we've had somebody either individual or team in the state meet, and that's been kind of nice to see. And it's not so much that record that means so much to me, it's the kids get the experience, and I love the fact that they get that experience, and that's something that I think a lot of them cherish for the rest of their lives.
We've seen so much changeover and all the coaches and all the schools out there. Brian, it's been great to know the consistency that you provided for the kids at South Central Calhoun. I'm not calling you old, by the way. So, but what does the future look for you? Are you going to continue to do this for the foreseeable future?
Oh, yeah, for the foreseeable future until they kick me out the door, which, could be tomorrow. You never know. But I really enjoy this particular sport just because, like I said, the kids we get are quality kids every year. Not that we don't get quality kids in other sports. We do, but it's just they just possess a little extra characteristic that just makes them, a little unique, and they're fun to deal with. They're very respectful. We always kind of look at our cross-country team as a cross-country family, and we treat them with that kind of respect, and I think many of them feel that closeness, that tightness, and when new kids come into the program, they see how the upperclassmen treat each other, they kind of take a big deep breath and go, this is a good place to be.
Well, I tell you what, we hear about Jeff Blankman's athletic prowess all the time, so we're going to book you on again, and we're going to talk about his high school career, okay?
Oh, I've got lots of good ones.
Can't wait. Brian, thanks so much for spending some time with us. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for the coverage, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, Brian Knapp once again with South Central Calhoun.
When you need to know, KCIM is the place to listen on 1380 AM and 95.1 FM. This is KCIM Carroll. This is CBS News on the Hour. Real news, real reporting.
Steve Kathan, the death of Jeffrey Epstein is